Hey guys, so today I'm going to be sharing with you the award-winning doctoral thesis. All right, so let's get started. Evaluation of green infrastructure components within the open spaces of selected settlements in Lagos metropolis, Nigeria. All right. Of course, the study was carried out by John Adekunle Adesina in the Department of Architecture, University of Lagos, and this study, was supervised by the two professors of architecture, Dr. Nezi Oduma Olugu and Professor Michael Adebamora. Evaluation of green infrastructure component within open spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis, Nigeria. Now, quickly, we're going to talk about the brief introduction, the literature review, the methodology. I'm going to present the data, and then, of course, the various analysis of the data. And, of course, we're going to do a summary of findings, and then I'll take you through the conclusion and, of course, the recommendations of the study. And we will do justice to the key contributions, of course, to knowledge, as captured in this study. All right, so let's get started. All right, so go. All right, so introduction, how the open spaces contribute to the preservation of natural and socio-cultural landscape element, and of course the provision of necessary ecosystem services. Okay, and then you will agree with me that urban green infrastructure, which is UGI, provide both the abiotic, biotic, and of course the social, economic, and the cultural functions, of course, in supporting, sustainability, according to Hehan 2007, and of course the United Nations Environmental Protection Agency 1995 and 2014. So low-income nations like India and other countries in the global south region, urban green spaces can serve, a soft engineering approach. So in some of these, low income nations like Nigeria, of course, all the countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, India, say urban green spaces as, an area where they can use, various soft engineering approaches, to mitigating climate, actions, of course, climate effect. And then now an ecosystem-based approach, EBA, to climate adaptation has been widely reported as a cost-effective tool in climate adaptation, according to International Union for Conservation of Nature 2011. So what is green infrastructure? What is green infrastructure? GI. Green infrastructure provide both several advantages, and as both several advantages and of course ecosystem benefits, such as enhancing public individual health, owing to a healthier way of life, human comfort, oxygen production, and of course carbon storage, and then of course purifying the environment. So while controlling the average annual rainfall and managing urban rainwater runoff, it helps to improve groundwater and of course soil condition, increasing resilience and enhance livability by improving natural and of course urban ecosystems. So in light of all the physical changes that has inflicted the areas, especially in the urban centers, resulting in a dysfunctional but thriving but prosperous urban landscapes, this study recognized that the environmental issues, have persisted in the urban landscape, for a very long time. And this is mostly, seen in the open spaces, All right, so let's go. Now, statement of the problem. The energy efficiency of buildings within the city is determined by what? By the GI component coverage in the metropolis. Yeah? And you will agree with me that as well as both the hard and soft landscape, all this influence the energy consumption within the city. All right, all this put together, influences what? The energy consumption, within the city and then within every settlement. Yeah. So previous studies have neither adequately quantified statistically the eco benefit of GI component following the urban green strategy, nor adopted sustainable ecosystem services principle, in designing greener cities. So lack of adequate knowledge, experience, and capacity in solving basic environmental degradation, and then of course scarcity of up-to-date maps. Scarcity of up-to-date maps using green cover performance data has further affected the urban landscape eco benefit. And of course, it has also affected various connectivity, within the landscape, with increasing urbanization. Funny enough, the urbanization kept increasing. Many things happening within the city on the landscape per time, but then this has led to a lot of worrisome, a chaotic urban development over the years. So, all right, so what's the aim and objectives of the study? So the study aims to what? To evaluate GI components within the urban spaces of selected settlements in Lagos metropolis. And the specific objectives are, first, identify the GI component within the urban spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis. Second, determine the usability of the GI component within the urban spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis. And then the third, establish the status of the GI component, within the urban spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis. And then the fourth objective is assess the eco benefit of the GI component within the urban spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis. And the fifth objective, of course not the least, is to develop an urban design model for GI component within the urban spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis. So now quickly let's look at the various research questions. So the research question for making Lagos a sustainable green city is underpinned by the following question: what is the geospatial distribution of GI component within the urban spaces of selected settlement in Lagos metropolis? Which factor or factors determine the usage of the GI component within the urban spaces in Lagos metropolis? What are the factors that determine the various usability of this component of these urban spaces within Lagos state? Come on, now let's go. The third objective is what is it? The third research question is looking at the existing status of the GI component within the urban spaces. What is the existing status? And the fourth is to what extent are the eco benefits of the GI component within the urban spaces beneficial to the people in Lagos metropolis? Of course, we have to talk about the benefits of these various components, these various eco benefits, to the people. How can urban planners, designers develop design model for the adoption of GI component within the urban spaces in Lagos metropolis? So the significance of the study: the carbon trade will serve as as an impetus for the carbon credit and carbon bond obtained through the carbon emission captured in the metropolis. And this carbon index give access to more employment opportunity, carbon bank facility, economic sustenance, a healthy environment, public transportation, city prosperity, and of course physical development. So let's go quickly to the next significance. This study also addressed the advantages that urban forestry, ecology, and services offer the metropolitan city through through the introduction of green gray, and of course the green blue component, and the revitalization of the green open spaces. We've got to revitalize the open spaces, especially the green open spaces. All right, so scope and delimitation of the study. Lagos State is made up of 5 administrative districts, namely Ikorodu, Ikeja, Ekpe, Badagry, Lagos Island, and Ikeja being the capital. This study identified only 4 as listed above and situated the study there due to factors such as location, demography, accessibility to other ICDA, existing infrastructure zoning, and of course town planning regulation, existing land use consideration, of course proximity to other districts and suburbs. Also, in no particular order, these were selected following various factors in no particular sequence. Okay, so Yeah, so no city is more important. All the city streets selected are equally important. All right, but then within the ambit, within the scope of this study, we have to select following the various identified factors, like what? Location, demography, accessibility to other LCDAs. I mean, LCDAs are the various local council development areas, like the local government areas. All right, and then existing infrastructure like road infrastructure, residential infrastructure, the residential pattern, the road layout, all these were considered. And then of course the zoning pattern, the town planning regulation, by the state planning office, and of course the various agencies in charge of the planning and of course regulation of the development within the city, and of course existing land use consideration and proximity to other city district within the city, of course within the metropolis. So Lagos Island, Ikeja, GRA, Festac Town, Ilupeju are all thriving mixed use communities with both residential and commercial activity at their peak. But it has been encroached by what? By urban sprawl, land reclamation, abuse, and misuse of greenery, and of course, urbanization over the years. So, the scope of this study includes the 3 GI component categories and the 12 GI component subcategories identified within what? Within the open spaces. So, what are these various indicators? So, the driving force indicators support the cause. And then what are the causes? The social, economic, ecological sector, and of course the human activities through what? Pressure. And what are the things that lead to the pressure? What are those things? The factors, the indicators that pressurizes the city, waste, human activity, activities, as the case may be, various activities within the city, and CO2 emissions. So, and then to state, physical, chemical, and of course the biological, indicator, and of course impact indicators conveys the degree of environmental harm, to human health. All this has to be quantified. There are values, there are ways this can be done, so that we can ensure proper data, collection, which this study adequately, did. And then harm to human health, ecosystem health, and then of course the city functionality. So quickly, let's look at the study did both empirical and conceptual review of literature, and then we reviewed many literatures, and we can see, according to the National England 2009, urban green areas are essential for what? For supporting city dweller physical and emotional health, for sustainable urban management, better healthcare, and efficient urban planning. So it's crucial, to comprehend the health advantages of these green areas. So natural, semi-natural, and artificial constructed network of dynamic natural system include what? Surrounding, and then all this connect the metropolitan region at all stages of development, and then which can also be regarded as part of it, as all part of the same city, part of the same system, the metropolitan system, network of all these facilities coming together. So to improve urban open spaces and outdoor habitat, the corridor as a cohesive planning unit, the idea of GI features was presented according to Samstrong 2002, and then we went further to look at Escobedo et al. 2009, which explored the link between urban tree cover, air quality, and of course the finding of the 3-year Chicago Urban Forest Climate Project estimated that the trees sequestered approximately about 155,000 tons of carbon annually and remove 6,145 tons of air pollutant, which is valued at about $9.2 million. That's a lot of money. That's the value. Okay, so they also provide energy saving, for residential heating and cooling, which in turn reduced carbon emissions from power plants, according to Martin 2013. So the ability of vegetation to filter is directly related to the size of its leaves, trees, and bigger canopy and offer more advantages, to trees design action, according to Tree Design Action Group 2008. So urban forestry is useful for enhancing air quality, especially when it comes to eliminating airborne particles, according to research conducted in Santiago by Wodarski 2007, Escobdor 2009. So, green infrastructure component within the urban settlement. GI can be categorized into three main subcategories and can be created here as either by natural or human activity. Benedict McMahon 2002 and McHarg 1969 established this fact. It can have untamed or semi-natural trait, according to Spin 1990 rather. All right, so let's go quickly to the various theories that support some of our claims. So parks in cities and other forms of open spaces may also be classified as well as meeting the minimum criteria for city facilities, and of course the classification of large vegetation. So Bayram et al. 2012 stated that green infrastructure initiatives rely on plant and ecological services, but they can additionally be artificially produced, whereas green infrastructure projects are engineering projects that employ steel, of course concrete. We know this. Okay, so let's go quickly to the various theoretical framework that underpins the study. So the green urbanism theory, the 3 pillars and 15 fundamental principles of ecological green urbanism theory, GUT: energy and materials, water and biodiversity, and of course urban planning and transportation, as well as their relationships with other socio-cultural characteristics, were covered by Lehman 2010. The 3 pillars and the 15 guiding principles of green urbanism are depicted as shown in figure 2.13 in the thesis. And this is a theoretical model for the adoption of inclusive GI component within open spaces, and of course as an organizing principle for GI planning and design, to be able to tackle these tremendous tasks of transforming the open spaces, and neighborhoods and community, while putting people first. And this is the framework, the green urbanism framework, and they can see the 3 pillars. All right, the energy and materials, water, biodiversity, urban planning, and of course transportation. And all the interaction of these 3 pillars, led us to this combination of 3 pie charts, which also falls within the spectrum of ecological conservation, global change, and then of course human needs. And all this put together is what we call, the GI planning model, the green infrastructure planning and design model, which this study, tried to uncover. All right, so we also, adopted the second theory, which is the critical urban theory, CUT. So the definition of the critical urban theory, it basically states that the rejection of market-driven, market-oriented statistics, and of course technocratic forms of urban knowledge, as well as inherited disciplinary division of labor. So we could say here clearly, it's a simple model, that brought many things together, like the critical theory that entails a critique of instrumental reasoning, and then the critical theory that emphasizes this juncture between the actual and of course the possible, and then the critical theory that is reflexive of the current situation within the city. All right, so quickly, let's go to the conceptual framework according to this study. Clearly, we can see the urban green infrastructure clearly linked to ecosystem services and the various eco benefit that can be derived from the city, from the environment, like the biodiversity, carbon pollutant uptake, thermal regulation, and of course the environmental sustainability. And then we also see the health benefit. These are more of environmental benefits, but these are the health benefits that is closely linked to the people. The ones in yellow, we see the health, urban well-being, economic prosperity, and of course social cultural prosperity, and the various strategies that was used to ensuring that there's a balance between both the health of the people and of course the environment in the one in green, and the one in yellow is basically the health, need, the need of the people when it comes to their personal well-being, and of course their prosperity, their health. All right, so we went further. We came up with the research gap. So addressing the conversion of open spaces into living areas that are worthwhile, for visiting, for improved city well-being, and as well the various, as well as how they are beneficial, to the ecological advantages, and of course advancing of and of course we also reducing the risks and impacts on the people. So this study explored the desire and the views of the local population. It concluded that the value of altered areas through sustainable urban method in Lagos metropolis is shaped by these urban intervention choices and expected health advantages. So finally, future studies should advance our knowledge of how green spaces may be strategically employed to promote social cohesion. These open spaces must be designed in a way, must be patterned in a way, that is going to promote what? Strategically promote, social cohesion, physical exercises, and then it's also, going to encourage, the usability by the people, especially the local people, and then with a focus, on women and children, who are the most vulnerable park visitors, or who are the most vulnerable park users. You and I, we agree with me, that women, children, and then of course the disabled, people of physical special needs. These are people that are most vulnerable. I mean, people that have special needs, in all forms. These are people that are the most vulnerable within us, amongst us, in the society. These are people that find it very difficult, to use the parks, even if it's well beautiful, if it's well designed. You see that these people still find it very hard, to have access to some basic things. So let's go quickly to the methodology, the research approach. The main source of information used in this study were primary and secondary data. This was accomplished by using direct survey method during the on-site survey and physical evaluation of the current state of the open spaces, landmarks, open spaces, and of course commercial hubs. All these places were identified, accordingly. And then the point of interest were taken after each calculated distances of an average of 750 intervals with each selected settlement, within each selected settlement along the major road and street. So before the site visit, the average distances were calculated from the maps, and the global positioning satellite GPS was used to obtain the various coordinates. So first, the study identified the existing open spaces and defined the research problems, and of course the condition of the GI component within the open spaces. Second, the population unit using the open spaces were determined. Third, the characteristics of the GI component and of course the users was also determined. Fourth, the data were collected using an appropriate direct survey method, personal interview, and copies of questionnaire. And then the fifth step taken, is to analyze and interpret the results. So during the field work, the open spaces and landmark were captured using GPS and were used to geolocate and calculate the total area, of each of the open spaces. All this were, keenly done, were painstakingly, done, so we could achieve results. So we ensure that the various volunteers, various stakeholders, were on board during the field work. And then future projection of the volume of oxygen released and of course the carbon sequestered were estimated by the use of high-tree echo. The study also relied on the use of high-tree echo model, in getting the various values of oxygen released into the atmosphere, the particulate matter, a pollutant that were captured, and of course the carbon that is sequestered, and then the various carbon that are stored, within the study frame, within the study period. So the study area, Lagos State is Southwest Nigeria, is a research region. The state has an estimated population of around 14 million people. It is framed by what? By the situated latitude as stated. Okay, so according to data from the National Population Commission official document in 2024, the population of Lagos metro area is estimated to be about 16.5 million. But then, we usually disagree about these figures. This figure basically it's not doesn't reflect the total number of people, within the metropolis. But then these are the information we've got. We've got this data from the National Population Commission, MPC, and then we have to rely on this data because these are official data, that we got for this study. And in 2022, the population of Lagos State was estimated to be what? Just about of Lagos Island rather, 314, about 315, thousand people. People Ikeja was estimated to about 470,000. Motion was estimated to be just barely, 936,000, and Festac, was estimated to be 372,000, people in Festac.